From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
Welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and this week I'm joined by one of my closest, dearest friends, the one, the only, the very lovely Kelly Colbath. Kelly, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Well, you know, Kelly and I met probably about, 6 or 7 years ago now in total, with being out of school for 2 years. So, yeah, we met back in college. I was a humble little freshman, and Kelly had already been tearing around campus as a sophomore, so we met then. We actually met through one of my previous guests on the show, my roommate, Lucas Rushton, who is also a Lewiston native,
I've known him since he was, like, 7th grade.
Oh, geez, you go even further back. Lil Lou.
Lil Lou.
But Kelly is also a Lewiston native and goes way back with Lucas and has known him for a while. So I guess there are some good people coming out of Lewiston, believe it or not.
There's like 5.
And I already know 2 of them, so. Oh, man. But yeah, no, Kelly and I met during our time at St. Anselm College. And Kelly, when I first met you, I have to admit, I know we were joking around earlier when we were getting ready to set this up, but I honestly, first time Lucas introduced me to you, I didn't know if we'd hit it off or even really be friends, because it was like definitely some like very, you know, without being insensitive here, militant lesbian vibes. Kind of like big like, I don't like men, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, back off. Not that I'm like, you know, a sexist or anything like that by any means, but it's like, wow, okay. But then come to find out, get to know you,
and I am that.
Well, no, come to find out, I get to know you, and you're actually one of the kindest, large-hearted people that I've ever met.
Thank you.
You know, and so that just goes to show you, folks. If they have short hair and a lot of tattoos, they are not angry. They're actually
not
great
angry.
Or
They're
maybe
not...
some of them are probably
Well,
angry.
Actually,
but...
don't take that approach to everyone, because a lot of them probably are angry.
Well, that's awesome. And so, yeah, thank you for coming on, Kelly. I greatly appreciate it. I know you're busy in your own way. So, but that being said, you know, we met at St. Anselm College, and, you know, basically our friendship blossomed from there. We even went to, as a collective, formal together, right? That was a good time.
Yeah.
Except Laura broke her foot. But
Laura broke her foot, but it's fine.
It was a great night.
Because she kept going.
Because she kept going. Didn't feel it until the next day.
And we kept writing it off and saying that she was just being dramatic. Turns out that she actually broke like 2 bones.
Foot stepped on the dance floor.
Foot stepped on. I still want to know who that was. That was a large person.
Do we know? Do we have suspicions? No, nothing at all.
We just know it was a large person running towards the buffet, which I don't.
No, it wasn't even the buffet. I believe it was the bar.
Okay, so I can't even really.
I think they were going for that elk.
I can't even, yeah.
Overpriced, but elk nonetheless. So when we were at St. A's, you actually, interesting, similar, well, Luca, did you start with your major psychology right out of the gate?
No, I went in for nursing.
You went in for nursing originally.
Yeah.
So actually kind of, you Lewiston people start out with one major and then swap over once
we all have commitment issues. Everyone. Yeah. Yeah. I went in, I don't know why. I thought it's so funny because, like, I am a very caring person and I like to care for others, but everyone I've ever talked to who's known me really well is like, I could never see you as a nurse. And so I just had it in my head that, like, I think, honestly, a lot of it was, like, pressure coming out of high school that you want to go into the healthcare field that's, like, at the time, seemed like the only successful field. So I went in for nursing, and still to this day, St. A's has one of the best nursing programs.
Without question.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's in the U.S., but definitely in New England. And so I did a semester of that, and it was the worst time of my life. Didn't realize how much math was involved in nursing, and so I learned pretty quickly that I would probably kill someone by accident. Converting all of the different units.
Oh,
but,
you mean prescribing and all that?
And prescribing, yeah, I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, 120 milligrams? Oh, I meant 12. I'm so sorry.
Or 21 versus 12.
Or 21 versus, yeah. And so, but one of the nursing requirements was intro to psych. And so I ended up taking intro to psychology and then absolutely loved it. And it actually took quite a few mental breakdowns because I felt like at the time, a young 18-year-old, that dropping nursing would like disappoint everyone. Like it would be like, oh, she's giving up.
Almost like there were some expectations set
Yeah,
either through family or close friends, and you're like, you didn't want to let anybody down, right?
exactly. And so it honestly took me going to my psychology professor, who was one of the directors of the entire department at the time. And she was just super, super open with me. And she was like, at the end of the day, are you happy with what you're doing with nursing? And I was like, no, I don't feel like it's cut out for me, and I just don't feel good while I'm doing the work. And so she kind of just had a heart to heart with me and was like, switching majors is not giving up on one. It's just pursuing something different. So, at the beginning of the second semester of my freshman year, I switched to psychology. And so a requirement of psych is to take an intro to sociology. And so absolutely fell in love with sociology. So then I started really loading up my classes with psychology and sociology based courses. And I met another professor in the sociology department, Professor Smits. She actually just got honored for being like one of the most influential professors on St. A's campus. But
Well, it makes sense, obviously.
oh my God, I love her so much. And her and I are still in touch to this day. But I just remember her pulling me aside after a couple classes I had with her. And she was like, have you ever thought about majoring in sociology? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to switch again. She's like, no, just double major. And I was like, what is that?
Just double, yeah.
Double out. And she was like, they literally go hand in hand. And so that's when I decided I already had enough like sociology credits under my belt that it made the double major like super easy.
So you actually double majored sociology, psychology then.
Yeah, so I have
that's
like
excellent.
a bachelor's in both.
That's all. I will admittedly did not know that.
Yeah, no, that's and so it was cool, and I think that it was the best decision I ever made because they do go hand in hand, and it was like, and in that way, I was able to kind of cut out some of the BS like liberal arts requirements that I didn't necessarily want to do because I was double majoring. So I just loaded up on psychology and sociology. So junior and senior year, I don't think I took other than like the, required to graduate smaller courses. I don't think I took a class I didn't like.
That's all. I mean, that's awesome. And that's very rare. I know that like people will get out and they'll say, oh, I wish I never majored in that. Like, I mean, I even know I've talked with you, like, with my own major being from the political science world, and be like, I've even had some, not doubts, but some hardships with, the major after the fact, and to hear that, you're glad you made that decision, you're locked in with that decision, and that's excellent, because, like I was saying, not a lot of people can say that. Not a lot of people are always happy with their choices. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I, got to go be a musician or something, but I had to go to law school, or something,
no,
whatever
for
it may
real.
be.
And like, that's the thing too, is I feel like there's so much pressure, and I don't know why. And this is either from like families and friends, but society like in general, that there's this like expectation that whatever you choose, you have to stick to no matter what, ride or die, unhappy or happy. And it's like, if you're, that there's no way that in our 85 plus years of life that we're just going to stick to one thing and that's it. So like, I feel like there's a lot of stigma around changing your route or changing, your journey just because people think of it as giving up on one.
Right. And as your professor had said to you, that's definitely some sage advice. You're not giving up on one thing.
Right.
You're just dedicating yourself to something else. And that actually goes back with our third episode. I had my mentor, John Millett, on, and he was talking about reinventing himself every so many years. And that's kind of interesting that you said that, because there's definitely some overlap there without question. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to feel like you're giving up, because you're not really. You're taking that next step and going on to the next thing. And and I agree, there's definitely some societal pressures there. And that's something I didn't get into with John that, I'm happy to discuss with you. Is just like this. There are societal, pressures there, and societal, I almost want to call them norms in a way.
Yeah.
That it's just like, go to college, get a job, get out. And it's just like, it's not that black and white anymore.
No.
And I mean, with COVID and with whatever else has happened over this last year, it's definitely made it even more gray
Yeah.
than it was before, right?
Yeah.
And it's difficult because we as young people are trying to make our own course, and it's just like, even if we're so happy that we found for example, your case, the psychology, sociology side of things, right? That's awesome that you found something you love, but the job market, different things like that, right? Do you need, how much schooling do you actually need, right?
Right.
It's like, do I need to go back and get my master's or my doctorate? Where do I kind of go from here? And I know that's something I've struggled with, and I know talking with you, that's definitely something that may have shocked you in certain ways too, because it's not just that simple.
No one has like these larger conversations either. I feel like it's just so much emphasis and pressure is placed on like the degree itself or the completion of college itself, and then no one really talks about afterwards. And it's like,
They never do.
I graduated so proud of having this double major in psychology and sociology to find out there's no job market for that. And like, don't get me wrong, I don't regret it not even for a second, but I wish that larger transitional conversations had been happening in college to prepare you, because I do have to go back and get my master's if I want,
To
not
take that
even
next step,
not
really.
even not even like pay wise. If I just want a job that allows me to have a little bit more influence in the mental health field, you can't do that without at least a master's. The master's has become the bachelor's. Like, bachelor's is almost like an expectation, and then what you do from there is like really what makes it or breaks it for you. But
which, again, I wish that someone had told us that sooner,
exactly.
right? Because it's like, instead of just getting us ready to graduate, hey, how about you, say, this is how you get into a good master's program, and this is how you, or, something like that. It's kind of like, when people look back at high school and they're like, oh, I wish they taught us how to, like, invest in, like, checkbooks and this, that, whatever
pay
else.
Taxes.
And I mean, like, or pay taxes. Like, some of that stuff they do, obviously, but, like, there are obviously some shortcomings. And I think my biggest critique or shortcoming of my 4 years in college was that I didn't feel ready for, I mean, I did, and I didn't feel ready for the world when I got out.
Nope.
I felt ready in my field in terms of, like, I felt like I had definitely had a leg up on other folks that have taken the same major at other schools. But in terms of just, like, being ready for society, being ready to basically be an adult, be a person, right? Like, that is not what they prepare you for.
No.
And the professionalism, of preparation, it's like, all right, you're out of school now. Just remember us when we have our days of giving or our whatever. You know what I'm saying? But it needs to be more than that, and it is for some, depending maybe on how much money you paid or what your last name is, But at the same time, it's just, it makes it difficult for the average people, the average man.
It really
woman,
is. And I feel like what's hard is that, and St. A's, beyond grateful for St. A's for the people that it brought into my life and the education it gave me. But a lot of colleges, especially when they're private like that, are geared towards a certain population. Unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to put it, towards people and kids who might have a little bit more opportunity coming out of school. Some of us
have
had
a little bit more means to create opportunities
exactly.
too.
I think a lot of us had to go back home and really immediately start working, whether it was a job we wanted or a job we didn't, but we're just not in the privileged sense that we could just take time to figure it out. We really just had to do it. And
if you
so
didn't
I
have
think
a job lined up before
exactly
you graduated,
and that's rare. I
Right.
mean, come on. And so, and that also takes us into just I think that our generation specifically is struggling, because the ones below us, I think, are in a way, like in the best way possible. They've got a little bit of ignorance is bliss about them, because they're not kind of dealing with the aftermath of the generation before us, where they are kind of setting their own expectations, and they're coming up into a world where I feel like that is just a lot more accepted. But we're kind of creating that narrative, but also dealing with our parents and our grandparents who are still trying to drill the other narrative, which is like,
Right.
you need to make money.
Yep.
You need to, do whatever you want to do, but not really whatever you want to do.
Right.
So,
well, and that's the interesting thing too, is that, the narrative of getting a job and then just working, it's like, you get out of school and it's like, do I really have to do just this for the rest of my life?
Right.
And not even just specifically like one job or one skill, but just like the act of working. And don't get me
Right.
wrong, I'm not a lazy person. You're not a lazy person. But like, I'm getting to the point where if this is the crap I have to deal with forever. I mean, what the hell, you know?
Well,
Like, I
and
don't want to have to deal with this,
and that's like
right?
that
And I feel like we're
whole
not alone with our
no,
generation. I feel like
no.
a lot of us that have a decent head on our shoulders are just kind of getting fed up.
And it's like you can't help but like think at the end of the day, like, is this what we're literally made to do, which is just go to work whether you love it or not. I love my job. Would I love to take a couple weeks off and travel? Absolutely, because I feel like there's more than just this, but at the same time,
And of course there
the
is.
larger systems have unfortunately put us in a position where we don't really have a choice. I mean, look at our student loans.
Right.
Look at what we have to pay. We don't really have the luxury to do anything but work. And
At
if
this
you
point in our
do
lives, yeah.
have additional means just from growing up in a privileged home, if you have that fortunate lifestyle, which is amazing, maybe you are given the opportunity to maybe take some time off of work and travel and all that,
Right.
which is amazing.
And good
But
for
it's
you.
just,
Like,
and
that's
good for
awesome,
you. And
know,
that's
like,
something to be happy
not
for. And
gonna
that's
hate you
something to
for
be
it.
proud
Yeah.
of. But it's like there's so much inequality in the sense of not everyone has that
Opportunity.
luxury.
Lack
Not,
of equity of
it's
opportunity. Yeah.
exactly.
No, without a
Exactly.
question.
And I
That's
think that just extends beyond working, though. I feel like when people say lack of opportunity, people immediately correlate that with like, oh, you mean getting a job? Like, no, like,
oh, there are
even
plenty of jobs out
there's
there. Go
plenty
work
of
at
jobs.
Dunkin'.
Like,
Yeah, like
it's beyond
yeah.
that. It's the luxury to maybe take a minute and have a family,
Or
It's
breathe.
to breathe, or to
Read a
figure
book,
out
you
who
know,
you
like,
are.
yeah.
Right?
Or you
Not
find yourself as a person.
exactly.
Hugely important. Are we given
Exactly.
enough time for it? Of course not.
No.
Never.
Are you kidding me? I don't think that it should be pushed to the fact that at 18 you are pressured to pick a career field, whether it's college or not, or trades or whatever it is. At 18, you're telling us that we can't even drink alcohol yet legally, and you're telling us
I can't
to
even
like,
make informed decisions.
I can't even make informed decisions. So like, and you're telling me that now I have to pick what I want to do for the rest of my life with very little experience. Like, I really feel like there should be this gap couple years between high school and college where you're expected to experience.
Yeah.
Like, not just sit on your couch and not do anything.
Right. But
But, like,
actually, there's a
get out
criteria,
there.
things you have to do. Right.
Because I really, really wish that I really don't think I ever would have chosen nursing if I had had some time in between to, like,
Think.
shadow people
Right.
and think and research and, like, really dig into what I'm passionate about. I feel like instead it was just, okay, quick, what are you going to choose? What looks successful? What's going to impress people?
Right. Or even
Nursing.
just the process that we apply for colleges or we try
Yeah.
to get into college, right? It's all, I understand that there's limited time and there's never enough time and this, that, and whatever else, but the fact of the matter is that the whole application process is very condensed depending on how many schools you want to apply
Yep.
for. Yeah, they have the Common App and they're getting rid of SAT scores and this, that, and whatever else,
Thank
but it's
God,
like
by the way.
but it's like
It's
you
ridiculous.
have between again as a junior or a senior in high school, you're expected to find your next home for the next 4 years, more or
Exactly.
less, right? And that's why we see kids transfer and this, that, and whatever else at high rates because it's not.
And
And how much of the decision are you making? How much of it is mom and dad? How much of it is
exactly,
financially rooted,
because
right? You know, like there's a
and
lot of different factors that
I
go
work
into it.
with a lot of kids who are the transitional age, and I'm just watching it because it's like they're preparing for their future, but they're preparing for their future based on what mom and dad want them to do. And it's like, I think the difficulty is that we're seeing, especially with people our age right now, because we're coming on to that age, is we're turning 24, 25, 26, and all of a sudden we're realizing all of the shit that we did for other people, and now we're unhappy. And now we're in this transitional point in our lives where it's like, I wish that I could have just made more decisions for myself longer ago, because now I'm in this position where I'm scrambling to deal with the decisions that I have made, but also try to make something for myself moving. But now I feel rushed because then there's also this expectation that by 30 you need to have it together. You need to have everything decided.
And on top of that, if you want to have a family, this is
If
the
you
time
wanna
you have
have-
to do that. If you want to get married, this is the time you
Exactly.
have to do
You
this.
have to do it
right?
between 25 and 30. And as a woman, you need to have kids in the
Right,
next 5
because
years.
you
And
risk
it's
Down
like,
syndrome and these other, birth
Exactly,
defects. I
and-
get it. No,
and it's like,
but it's
there's
frustrating.
there's always pressure, and it almost makes me feel like people our age feel like we need to have our life completed, done, no more decisions made by 30.
right.
And so that places an additional amount of pressure
And stress.
and stress on us because it's like, for me, I'm totally open about the fact that I'm 25 and I live with my mom. And there's this pressure on me that it's like, that's stupid, or
Right.
that's ridiculous, or that's
Right.
pathetic. When really it's just how the situation turned out, and I'm happy with it,
It's
and I
just how the
love my
cookie
mom,
crumbled,
and
right? Yeah.
right, but there's this, who decided that at 25 that's a pathetic thing? Do you know what I mean?
Whoever it was is stupid.
I
But
know.
no, I mean, like, I'm in the same boat as you. I know we've talked about this before, but I mean, I'm 24. I live at home. I mean, I lived out of state for a while I was working, but then when that opportunity dried up, I mean,
Yeah.
you had to go somewhere. I mean, stay down there, pay rent, watch all your money
Exactly.
go through, because again, no affordable housing.
And like, but here
rent
we
is
are trying to
ridiculous.
figure it out.
And exactly, here we are trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I guess I'm lucky that I have some means, I do have some privilege, lack of a better term, that have allowed me to like take that thinking time you're talking about. But I'm taking it now. I'm taking it 2 years,
Right.
more or less, after I've graduated.
Exactly.
Right.
Like,
what good is that? I mean, not to say that it isn't still good, but what good is that? It doesn't do as much good now, I guess, in my opinion. It still does some good, obviously, without a question. I mean, self-analyzation, focus, is so important. But technically we just are feeling like we're stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
100%.
just given, and part of it's considered circumstances, and this, that, and whatever else. And it's hard because we talk with our parents, or we talk with that, and then they can somewhat sympathize, but they can't fully sympathize, right?
Because they were brought up in
the
a
world that
different
they
generation.
were raised in no longer exists.
I mean, my mom was out of the house on her own, with her own apartment and everything, by 17.
Yeah, my dad was in more or less.
Do you know what I
same
mean?
boat.
And
Yeah,
it's like,
no.
I feel like there's this expectation, and it's kind of funny. I think it's a little ironic that the generations ahead of us have this expectation still that, like, you need to be out on your own. You need to be. What they're not realizing is that they created this society and this narrative that is no longer working for us. And it's like, the whole reason why we're 25 and moving back home is because we can't, I don't know, keep up with I mean, that's why times change. That's why society changes. That's why evolutions happen. And
hopefully continues.
Hopefully.
Right? Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know.
It's not perfect, and I know it's stressful and difficult, but eventually, hopefully we navigate our way through whatever this is.
Whatever
I guess
it
you
is.
can call it life, strife, whatever you want to. They all rhyme, so
Whatever
it doesn't
it
really
is.
matter. But I know you being such a an easy person to talk to has definitely helped you form your role. What specifically are you doing for work? Just technically, I know you mentioned you're working with kids, but like, what is your role?
Yeah, so my role is a care coordinator, which is actually kind of newer language that's being presented to the mental health field.
Evolution.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, because so I guess, for lack of better, you could relate it to a case manager.
Okay.
So, but the key difference is that a care coordinator kind of really, really focuses in on the individual's, what we call, voice and choice, and that's just bringing it down to the basics of what that client wants, what that individual feels like is best for them in that moment. We honor and we help do whatever we can to make that happen. We don't question their decisions, because even if what they think they need right now is not necessarily what we think someone in that position would need right now, that's not for us to say.
Right.
And I think that actually goes off of what we were just talking about, that it's like these larger systems, these larger populations deciding for individuals what's acceptable and what's not. And it's like, we're trying to take that narrative away. Like, if you feel like in this moment, this is what you need, and it's not what I might want for myself, that's the whole point of being an individual. They're different needs. And so what I do is, we work with kids between the ages of 2 and 21, which is funny because obviously in the state of Maine and basically everywhere else, 18 is an adult. But children are on my children's caseload until they're 21.
Right.
Which I think also goes to show a little bit just about mental health and like developmental.
Right.
And if, we're able to take a step back and say at 21, you don't
They're
have
still not
to
letting
have
them making all these choices by
exactly.
themselves. Like,
And so
yeah, no, I get you.
So basically what my program does is we believe in the intersectionality between all the different systems. So if you
Right.
look at a 5-year-old and he's got severe ADHD, or he's, got some intense needs, and has autism spectrum disorder, you can't look at what his school needs are and completely disregard what his physical health needs are, and vice versa. I
Right.
mean, everything needs to have some sort of intersectionality, and I feel like, not just me, but a lot of people in this field feel like there's been too much segregation between the systems.
Right.
Physical healthcare is physical healthcare, and academics are academics. And it's like we just believe in a more holistic approach, which
Right.
is, these kids are affected by what they see in school, which is what they bring home, which is what they deal with, which is what, you know,
Snowball.
it snowballs. So my role is to, meet with that family, really go through what they feel like their needs are in that moment, whether
Right.
that's, it's honestly something as simple as making sure they're getting all of their clothing needs on a, day-to-day basis as the
Right.
seasons
Something as
change.
simple as that. And
Yeah,
actually, it's funny that I say that. Something as simple as that, but for some folks it's actually very difficult to
exactly.
maintain clothing, put clothing on their backs. And I know, like, I was teaching, in the school over this past year, and we had the Coney closet. Basically, it
Yep.
was like a area where kids could come and get clothes free of charge. We did it once around winter time, and then again towards the end of the year. Because some of these folks don't have, like, how focused are you going to be on learning, or how focused are you going to be on insert activity here if you're cold, or if you're
Precisely.
hungry,
Or
or if
if you've
you're
been
whatever,
wearing
right?
the same shirt for the past 5
Right,
days,
and you
and
haven't
that's
had a
all you
shower, or
have.
like, you try to do it in the laundry, but you're getting bullied at school. You're gonna wear a different shirt today,
Exactly.
like whatever it may be, and that it leads to, especially for the kids, a laundry list of other problems.
Exactly, exactly. And that's precisely what we're talking about when we say that there's this intersectionality between everything, the most basic of day-to-day needs. And so mm, but what we like to do in my role is so take their voice and choice, make them feel heard, make them feel validated, but connect them to resources in the community that allow them to meet those goals themselves.
Right.
So we don't do anything for them.
You just help
So
them get access to, like, for
exactly.
example, I know, like, in schools when you have to have an IEP or a
Hmm.
504 for a kid, right? Behavior or special needs. Like folks like yourself I had experience with folks in a similar role to you that would, advocate, say, well, you can get this and this support for the kid. Like, this
Yep.
is what is allowed within the curriculum, or allowed within the Department of Education, or whatever that may, allowed within the school's special ed program, whatever it may be. And so that's an important role, in my opinion, is that,
Yeah.
and I mean, again, don't come from the world of education. I'm not a certified teacher. Just I was a long term sub, but
You
you know,
still see a
it was
lot.
still, you see a lot of that, and it was refreshing to see, some of these folks that worked in the sped department, like, some of the biggest advocates and some of the biggest supporters of their kids, regardless if it's in school or out of school.
Hmm.
It's not even so much that they're, like you said, it's not so much that we're giving them something.
Yeah.
We're just making sure they know what they can have access to, and know what is out there for them.
And in order to work with my agency, so these families are all low income,
Mm-hmm.
have to have main care. And so, unfortunately, just statistically speaking, these are populations of people that these larger systems don't listen to. They don't
Mm-hmm.
care. So, my role can be as simple as advocating and taking exactly what they're saying and bringing it up higher and higher and higher. And so that's exactly, what we're talking about. From the second we take a client on, we talk about transitioning out of services, because we are not building them to become reliant on us. We're building them to become self-reliant.
Right.
And
And I think
so,
that's a very
yes,
effective model, and that's a different model from a lot of your government programs.
yes,
It is.
a lot of the government programs, they're just very, very focused on providing what they need in that moment and then moving on. But it's like, that's not sustainable. These
No.
families need to know in a moment of crisis, who can I reach out to? So our entire approach is making sure these families feel like they have the natural supports and the teams that they need, that when we're gone, when we're discharged, they feel prepared, that no matter what they feel they're in need of in the moment, they know who to reach out to.
See, that almost sounds like you're educating them on
Yes.
how the system works.
Precisely, which
Isn't
is
that
something.
amazing? And it
Isn't
kind
it
of goes back
crazy?
to what we were just talking about. If you educate people on how the system works, they can better navigate the system.
Precisely. Could literally could not have
Regardless
said it
if you're
better.
dealing with folks with special needs and
Yep.
or underprivileged folks, or if you're dealing with kids that are just getting out of college.
Yep.
Right?
And
Depending on
it's
how the education is designed, how much information you're allowed to know about a program or a class or whatever it may be, it affects things.
Yep. And I think mental health, the fact that it all ties back into, all of our clients have at least one mental health diagnosis. That's part of the criteria of working with us too. And it's
Right.
because there's so much stigma and there's so many additional barriers that are put in place for those diagnosed with mental health disorders. And that's what we're trying to combat. We're trying to show them that they deserve every opportunity that anyone else has.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's harder for them.
It is.
But we're there to kind of remind them that, like, you have power, you have voice, this is how you use it.
Well, and that's interesting you say that too, because it really kind of reminds me a lot of you as a characteristic as a person, right? I would describe you and as one of the most empathetic people I know, and I mean I know that obviously goes hand in hand with your job, right? I mean you do have to be empathetic to work with kids, you have to be understanding, you have to be considerate and caring, but even outside of that, just like I know with a lot of our personal relationships with friends and family, everything like that, I know that you are a lot of the time for a lot of folks the shoulder to cry on, and I know that between doing that for work and having that in your personal life, I'm sure that can't be always easy, but with empathy, I think it's something that is just, I don't think it's as visible as it should be, or as frequent or as popular as it should be, right? I think over the last year, and again, just my opinion here, but I think people have become the most selfish, or maybe perhaps they were kind of hiding behind a mask, but the lockdown, the COVID, whatever you want to call it, has really kind of exposed a lot of that now. And I mean, I'm even thinking of people that and again, who am I to cast judgment? But at the same time, it's just the people I've known for a long time that, you would think would give the shirt off their back, or, would, if you needed to make a phone call, they'd be right there, and they're not.
And I think that COVID was just like this one big, I wouldn't even say metaphor, but I guess it was like this moment in time where people started to realize that, when push comes to shove, when there's difficult times, people start to show themselves. And I think that this entire year has been made up of difficult times. And I think that it made people it forced them to see who was there for them and who wasn't. And I think that that's a really hard realization to come to, especially when we've spent a year in basically isolation, and to further isolate yourself from people who are taking your energy from you. That's really, really hard. And I think that that's one of the most difficult parts about being an empathetic person is, there's this thing called empathetic exhaustion. And so what it is you're just constantly taking on the energy of others because you feel this need to help, but not only that, you're putting out this energy that allows others to come to you, which is a gift and a curse at the same time.
It's a double-edged sword.
Exactly, because then people are coming to you and you're wanting to be that safe place, and you're wanting to be that person who can hear them, but you're also becoming that person who takes it on. It's almost like I saw this really, really great illustration of empathy one time where it's like you see this person who has no color in them whatsoever, and then there's a person who's really, really sad and they're colored all in gray. And then that empathetic person hugs the person all in gray, and the gray transfers to that person. And then that person is off and okay and feels better because they've gotten things off their chest. But that empathetic person is left there, with that trauma, with that energy, whatever you want to call it. And I think that that's everyone in this field.
Right.
I mean, my entire team is probably some of the most empathetic individuals. And actually, I mean, incredibly tragic. We just lost a member of our team due to domestic violence.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And it was like this big wake up call, because she lost a battle that we are working with our clients to fight every
on an
day.
everyday basis.
On an everyday basis.
I'm
and
sure
it was
that
like
hits home really hard.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
And it almost made, I think, my entire team take a step back and realize that, like, a lot of times I think we use empathy as a shield and we think that it protects us, but it doesn't, because we're
not against
still
everything.
Exactly. We're still able to deal with the exact same shit that we take on from others. And it's like, if we can't fight that for ourselves, it's
who can you fight it for?
Exactly.
Right?
And so it really was like this huge wake up call to, I think, my entire team about, riding that line between being empathetic, but also taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? And taking care of what you feel like you can take care of in that moment. And if you can't take on someone else's shit, then you can't. But it's creating that boundary and being able, but it's hard,
right?
Because people you love come to you and they know that you're a person who will listen, and they, you know, express what they feel like they need to express, and they say what they need to say, but sometimes don't realize the aftermath of what position that leaves that person into. And when you're constantly spending your day-to-day life helping others through their problems, you kind of don't have the energy at the end of the day to deal with your own.
Which is dangerous in its own right? Because we have to take care of ourselves. At the end of the day, the empathetic person can't be empathetic if they're not okay.
Exactly. And so we, you know, that's what a lot of in our field we call burnout is when we're just constantly taking on others' traumas, and at the end of the day we're realizing that we don't have the energy or the capacity to take on our own. And I don't even mean like trauma or emotional struggles, but day-to-day life. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate that I don't have children in this line of work, because I don't think I would have the capacity to take on their emotional needs at the end of the day.
It's a lot.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. So,
and that just, I mean, in my opinion, goes to show how much more you're in touch with yourself, right? You're just like, at this point, I just don't have it, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's just not in the cards for me right now.
I think that that's a super important component too, is being able to be in touch with yourself a little bit, which is hard because I feel like sometimes setting that boundary, empathetic people mistake that for being selfish. And they're like, if I can't take on everyone else's stuff, then that's me focusing on me, and that's not fair.
Me too much, right? And that's not true either,
but,
right?
and it's really, and the biggest thing that we say instead of, you know, and especially in this line of work, is it's not, you know, this is me, or, you know, just me. We like to phrase it as me too.
Right.
So you're not discrediting that the other person is in need. You're not discrediting that other people have needs, but you're also including your own. And you're not writing
keeping
off
yourself in mind at the end of the day, which again is so important, right, folks? I mean, and this goes without saying, if anybody listening is feeling upset or stuck or anything like that, reach out.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. It's, you know, there's a reason why I have, you know, folks of the psych field come on, because coming out of this COVID thing, we can't not be talking about mental health. We can't not be talking about what bothers us, right? Because that's just going to lead to more problems that, you know, existed before. And again, when we're in a situation like this, you know, not to, you know, rain on anybody's parade, but it's important that we talk about it, regardless, you know. And again, I know you're coming up to the 4th of July. Hopefully people will be able to see each other and, you know, everything like that. But that being said, you know, it's just it just makes it difficult, right?
Yeah.
When you got to make sure you're okay, and you're also trying to make sure other people are okay.
Well, and I think it honestly starts with conversations like this, though, where part of the stigma is not talking about mental health. It's this invisible battle that you feel like you need to hide, or if you talk about it's some sort of weakness, but
or suppress it, like,
or
we don't
suppress
talk
it,
about
and
that.
it's like the biggest thing that I can think of is, you know, if you come down with a physical illness, I mean, it's pretty common to say, like, hey, I'm sick, I can't do this right now. I'm sick, I need to stay home and rest. And that's like a very, very normal thing to say. But it's like, it's not normal, quote unquote.
We don't usually do that.
To be able to say, I'm having a really bad anxiety day. I need to take a break. I can't take this on right now. And what I want is for that narrative to completely change. And I want people to be able to realize that mental health and physical health and social life, they all go hand in hand. And so you can't suppress and ignore something,
because it's only going to lead to problems with the others.
Exactly. And just putting this out there for anyone listening, or anyone who, you know, knows someone who might be struggling. There's a 24-hour crisis line in the state of Maine through the Opportunity Alliance, which is where I work. And so really what it is if you're feeling literally anything at all. I mean, you could feel stuck, you could feel overwhelmed, you could feel scared, you can feel
just be having a bad day.
You can just be having a bad day. This is a 24-hour access line that you can connect with someone, and whether you're just looking for someone to vent or you're looking for resources, they will connect you.
Excellent.
And so they're there to listen, you know, no judgment, no nothing. You can call and you can tell them
Anonymous,
what they need.
all that type of stuff.
Exactly. And so that number is 1-888-568 1112. So just
Yeah, excellent. And I'll be sure to include that in the description for this episode, as well as any links or anything online to any of your stuff as well there.
yeah, because I think that's
most
another
definitely.
thing that just needs more awareness is the
Yeah,
resources.
the
I feel like
resources.
people feel like they hit a wall because there's nothing out there, but there is.
Right, and they're very much there, guys. Folks listening, that it's just taking the first step and, kind of accepting, hey, I need to reach out, or hey, I
Yeah.
need to make a phone call, or hey, I need to talk with somebody. Because again, folks, it's important. We want to keep you around. We want to keep you here. So, with that being said, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
I know
thank
we're running
you.
a little short on time for today, but with that being said, we'll happily have you on to talk about, animal ownership and
Yes.
being a dog mom and a whole other
Yes.
line of things that I know we could talk about. But that being said, we are a little short on time today, guys. So that is this week's episode of the DuView Podcast, episode 5, with my lovely guest, Kelly Colbath. And so with that being said, folks, we'll be back in 2 weeks exactly here. All right, with our next episode, and I hope everybody had a good 4th of July. Make sure you're staying up to date with us on social media. I know it's summertime. I know people are busy, but keep up to date with what I'm doing too. DuView at DuView207 on Instagram, and the DuView Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere else. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in, folks, and I hope you're having a great summer so far.